Item number 8, public hearings. Notices have been published, posted, and mailed. Hold a public hearing and adopt the resolutions. We're going to have one public hearing and 4 actions. Item A, approving the city manager's recommended 2011-2012 general fund, special revenue funds, and enterprise funds budget. Staff report, please. City manager.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'm going to make a few introductory comments and then ask Finance Director Edmund Suen to provide a brief overview of the budgets that are in front of you tonight for consideration to approve. First of all, there are 3 items that are the subject of this public hearing. You can conduct a single public hearing to consider all of them at the same time. Those include the general fund and special revenue and enterprise fund budgets, the redevelopment agency budget, and there is an item regarding the redevelopment housing operations that is a required action in conjunction with adoption of the budget. We've included a 4th item in the list in your agenda for approval of the GAN limit, and the Finance Director will talk to you about that separately. While it's not technically a public hearing item, we've included all of the budget items together for the sake of your convenience in understanding the big picture and how they all wrap up together. Lastly, before I turn over the more detailed comments to the Finance Director, I wanted to call your attention to a couple of items that are on the dais in front of you tonight and ask your consideration of a slight change to the way that this item was prepared and presented to you for approval tonight. What you have in front of you, what I think you have in front of you, is a revised copy of both the staff report and that identifies and highlights a couple of financial issues and is intended for the purposes of simply of clarification that elaborate on some of the items that have been modified in the budget since the time that you conducted study sessions last week. And again, the Finance Director will go into that a little bit more completely. More specifically, I want to call your attention to a resolution that's titled Approving Tentative Water and Wastewater Enterprise Fund Budgets for Fiscal Year 2011-12. Specifically, the city, your staff is asking for you to consider holding the public hearing, reviewing the budgets, and acting on all of them tonight. But in order to allow the council a little bit more time to consider some of the details and the specifics of the enterprise budgets, both of which, the water and the wastewater enterprise budgets, have experienced some amount of significant change in the expenditure program related to a variety of factors that are relevant, among them including the significant rate increase through the San Francisco PUC for the portion of our water that we purchase. And secondly, in the wastewater enterprise, a fairly lengthy list of new activities and expenditures that will be expected to be initiated during the next year as part of the ongoing consideration of the city's sanitary sewer overflow violation issues and the attention that that has attracted both from a local environmental group who's initiated litigation against the city, and secondly, and perhaps more significantly, from the Regional Water Quality Control Board, the local the regulator. So what we're asking you tonight is to conduct the public hearing to review all the budgets in any manner that you choose, and that you consider, rather than approving the water and wastewater budgets tonight, that you adopt a resolution that will allow you to take a little bit more time to review those budgets in a bit more detail, and to, at the same time, allow us to continue operations in a methodical manner, which includes being able to continue expenditures past July 1st. So with that, I'd like to ask the Finance Director to walk through from a big picture overview perspective of the budgets that are in front of you tonight, and we'll be happy to take any comments or questions. Again, this is a public hearing item, so following our comments, you'll need to open open a public hearing and consider comments from anybody in the audience who wishes to speak.
Are you going to do these one by one, Ed, or do you want me to just introduce B and C also, and then you can just follow through?
If we can just do them simultaneously.
Yeah, that's good. I already talked about item A. B is approving the city manager's recommended 2011-12 San Bruno Redevelopment Agency budget, and C will be determining that the planning and administration expenses funded in fiscal year 2011-12 by the Low and Moderate Income Housing Fund are necessary for the production, improvement, and/or preservation of affordable housing for low and moderate income households. And D, as the city manager said, is adopt a resolution approving the city's appropriation limit of $30,605,771 for fiscal year 2011-12, which is the GAN limit.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, members of the City Council. Ed Binsoon, Finance Director. In looking at the current fiscal year, one of the things that we're seeing, having now 11 months of information, is that we're seeing an improvement in the revenue picture for the general fund. As a result of that, we're projecting that the deficit that we had forecasted when we prepared the 2010-11 budget will be eliminated in its entirety. And in fact, we would have a positive balance of approximately $100,000 that we can carry forward. Along with that picture, in terms of the revenues, our expenditures for the fiscal year, we're projecting that to fall within the adopted budget numbers that we have. So the combination of those two scenarios gives us the picture where we have a surplus, that we're estimating a surplus for the 10-11 fiscal year. So with that backdrop, we move into the 2011-12 general fund budget, and what we are including in terms of assumptions are that there would be no new reductions in staffing and or programs. The prior year budget reductions that we have in place still continue. There is an expenditure hit in terms of CalPERS rate increases, and that works out to be about $614,000 against the general fund. And then in terms of the furlough, we currently have approximately a 3.125% salary reduction that's incorporated into the budget for 11-12. And then lastly, in terms of expenditures, we're assuming that the increase in medical premiums would be covered with additional furlough time that would be resulting in a pay reduction for staff. In looking at the general fund revenues, if you can focus in on column 2 and column 3. Column 2 is really what we're estimating for the fiscal year to end in terms of revenues. And you compare that to column 3, which was what we're proposing for the budget, and the $443,000 aggregate difference represents a less than 1.5% change between what we're estimating for the end results for revenues for this year compared to what we're proposing for next year. The reason why I'm highlighting that is that we continue to be very conservative in our revenue estimates, and as you can tell, looking at the various categories that we have, is pretty minor in terms of adjustments in those various categories there. So with that background information, what we're proposing in terms of 11-12 budget is an operating revenue number of $31,891,677 against an operating expenditure budget of $32,237,748, therefore leaving a deficit of $346,071. I'm sorry. So as I alluded to earlier, there is a surplus that we're expecting from 10-11, so that surplus is going to be added on to the estimated unfunded, undesignated fund balance that we're going to project for the end of this year at 6/30. So with that $934,000 in change that's available, what we're recommending is that we use $346,000 of that to balance the 11-12 budget. When we went to City Council with the two study sessions last week, we also included some supplemental budget adjustments, enhancements that were not included in the numbers. Now, we've since folded those numbers into the budget document, and just wanted to go over some of those enhancements there. In the general fund, we have in the budget, in the City Council budget, a $10,000 addition for the planning efforts for our centennial. So that's now been added there. In the finance department budget, we've added $15,000 for an update of the city's cost allocation plan. And then in the redevelopment budget, we've identified $100,000 for the San Bruno entrepreneurship program. And then lastly, in the wastewater fund, we have identified an associate engineer necessary to administer the sewer CIP projects, and that comes with a cost of $122,178. So this slide shows a summary of our enterprise funds. In aggregate, they total $33,695,250 in terms of revenues, and expenditures $28,582,317. And individually, as you can see on the slide, we've identified for each of the respective funds their revenues and expenditures. Redevelopment agency for the operating fund, $7.277 million in revenues, expenditures of $5.4 million. In the low and moderate income housing fund, $1.2 million plus in revenues and $1.4 million in expenditures. The governor has proposed a budget that includes the elimination of redevelopment with the condition that if cities volunteer to pay into a fund to help the state close its budget deficit, that the redevelopment agency would still be able to continue to exist. That has not been incorporated into the budget, and as the state budget continues to unfold and we get better information, obviously we may come back to the City Council in terms of adjustment of the redevelopment agency budget. The next few slides, we're basically going to identify what we recommended in terms of the study sessions and how we got to the final budgets. In terms of the general fund, we started an appropriation number of $32,214,248. Through the discussions of the study session, aggregate change works out to be $23,500, I'm sorry. Composing of the $10,000 in the centennial celebration, $15,000 in the cost allocation plan, and adjustment in terms of professional development of $1,500. So the aggregate change of $23,500 has been made into the general fund. Enterprise fund, we updated the enterprise fund appropriations with information from the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission in terms of rates. So that actually reduced our expenditures by $204,000, and then also an adjustment in professional development of $250. In the wastewater fund, there was an adjustment, as we discussed earlier, adding the associate engineer as a supplemental that worked out to be $122,178, and then also professional development associated with that position works out to be $500. And then lastly, in terms of the RDA, the $100,000 for the entrepreneurship program, bringing the total appropriation there to $5,421,585, and solid waste also an adjustment in terms of the professional development line item, so correcting that to $102,628. So with that, I can take any questions and basically conduct a public hearing and then ask for the City Council to adopt the various resolutions that are in front of them, in front of you.
Any questions of the Finance Director at this time? Irene, you all right?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Okay. At this time, we'll open the public hearing. Would anyone in the audience like to discuss this matter with the City Council? if we close the public hearing, you're going to be precluded from discussing these items with us before we vote. So it's your last chance. Any action?
Move to close the public hearing?
There's somebody wanting to
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Please give us your name and your street.
Jim Evangelist, DeSoto Way.
A little closer.
Jim Evangelist, DeSoto Way.
Thank you.
Now, regarding the redevelopment agency proposal from or conflict with the state, has a lot of thought been given to the fact that as the state goes, so does small communities like us?
Yeah, the state has historically been coming to local agencies to balance their budget. I mean, historically, we've seen quite a bit
Well, of course, yeah.
And you're right. I mean, absolutely, some of those impacts have been really magnified, especially for smaller communities. So as we prepare budgets on an annual basis, we're constantly monitoring what the state does. In this particular budget cycle, obviously, the governor has, back in January, as early as January, proposed the elimination of redevelopment, and we continue to look at that. And based on the latest information that we received from the governor in terms of his budget proposal, that is still in place. And as I indicated earlier, we would, once the dust is settled, so to speak, we will then have to go back into our budget and look at potentially revising that to match up to what the state is proposing to do.
Right. I mean, are you setting up a totally adversarial relationship with the state regarding the redevelopment situation? Or, because I feel personally that if the state is not doing well, then the smaller communities are going to have a tougher time as well. I mean, our state is the 10th largest economy in the world. So as the state does well, then consequently, I think the smaller communities like ours would do well, especially if we show that we're cooperating.
Right. The issue we have, Jim, I think is, and I just maybe speak for the council, is that we have to balance our budget. And
yes.
We started this redevelopment agency a number of years late, and now it's just fledgling. But I mean, you wouldn't see what's happening at the crossing or some of the stuff that's downtown if we didn't have it. And we're just starting to build this up. And now the state took a large chunk of money from us last year, wants to take another one, and in fact wants to eliminate redevelopment. Maybe because they feel that some of the larger agencies over the years have really done a different kind of job than we're doing here. So we're watching it very, very closely. But I can tell you that even if they decide to officially at the state level eliminate redevelopment, there are huge lawsuits being planned by the League of California Cities, and this is just going to devastate a lot of organizations that are doing a whole lot of good because the money from redevelopment is getting poured right back into your city.
No, I know the significance it plays in, especially a small community like ours.
Yeah. Well, I guess we can say we're watching it very, very closely. It's a little too early. What we're budgeting is what we can budget at this point in time, but it's sort of a moving target. And I think the city manager would like to say something.
I just wanted to make some more specific comments to round out what the finance director said. And I think there are pros and cons on all sides of this issue, which I think you're suggesting in your comments. The most current proposals currently on the governor's desk and in front of the legislature involve an action to eliminate redevelopment and then immediately subsequently to reestablish redevelopment agencies with requirements for annual contributions of tax increment to the state. So when the finance director said our budget would need to be modified based on the most recent information, assuming that that does become finally cemented into state law, there is a significant potential for us needing to make write a large check to the state.
Right.
Honestly, I think that there is, while the mayor is correct that there will be litigation will ensue and perhaps will go on for a very long time, and this issue may remain unresolved for some period of time. The San Bruno Redevelopment Agency is prepared to make the contributions as we currently understand what those might be.
Right.
And
I see.
so I think that we're trying to maintain both a constant awareness, but to understand what the various issues are on all sides of the coin. And
Right.
unfortunately, as the Mayor also indicated, the full elimination of redevelopment would be, in many respects, devastating for the city of San Bruno, for its future in terms of the opportunity to realize the potential of redevelopment, particularly in our downtown area.
Yeah, with our needs to rebuild.
Correct.
and
So,
renovate,
so there are a number of moving pieces, and there is numbers of issues, and I think time will allow us to tell where this is really going to go.
One other question I had was the management analyst, I believe, for wastewater. Would that be an individual, be the full-time employee, or would he be attached to this, the pertinent CIP projects from the beginning to end? And would that end his relationship with the city? Or is he a full-time employee? What's the situation there?
I can answer that. The intent is to add a full-time associate engineer to the city's workforce for the purpose, as you indicate, primarily of managing, assuring the delivery of the capital projects and the other activities that are necessary in order to meet the requirements of the regulatory agencies in the settlement of a lawsuit the city is currently engaged in. The overall intent is, over the period of 10 years, to reduce sanitary sewer overflows from a relatively high number to a very, very, very small number.
Mm-hmm.
And that anticipated work program occurs on a going forward basis and intensively over the next 10 years.
I see.
So the current plan is for that position to be made a full-time regular staff position in the city's workforce, and as always, should needs of the organization change and or the opportunity, the ability of the city to fund, as you well know, we look at that on a regular,
Yes.
every year basis,
Mm-hmm.
and would make those adjustments as needed.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the council? Action to close the public hearing?
Move to close the public hearing. Second.
Motion is second to close the public hearing on the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, any action on our resolutions?
Through the chair.
Yes, Irene.
I had two questions.
All right.
During the study session, we talked about the fire hose replacement program, and I didn't see in the commentary afterwards that anything had changed.
Wait a sec, Irene, we're
Is that
having
still
a little difficulty hearing you.
I'm
Wait a
sorry.
minute.
You want me to? Okay. I said we talked about in the study session the fire hose replacement program, and I didn't see in the staff report any commentary about it. Is that being looked at?
I still didn't.
Regarding the
fire
fire
hose replacement that was brought up in the study session. That's what she's questioning.
She's wondering why she didn't see anything in this presentation about the fire hose replacement program that she commented on during the study session.
The fire hose replacement program is addressed, I believe, in the materials that were provided to the city council, the detailed responses to the various questions that arose during this study session. I'm sorry to say that the fire chief is not here tonight, and I can't answer that question directly at this moment, Irene. So at this point, if that information is not adequately provided in the materials that you have, and you'd like us to, the city council would like us to further evaluate that issue, my suggestion would be that we bring that back as consideration for a potential budget amendment and/or further analysis by the City Council.
Okay. And then on page 69 of the staff report, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. On page 69, it talked about the stormwater management plan, and I had asked a question about the Cupid Row and keeping us updated about the dredging and the airport and all that part. The way it's written in the staff report, it sounds like I expected that to be part of the master plan. That wasn't my intention. My intention was to know if any staff time was allocated to keep abreast of what the airport and BART and the county are doing in that area. Just to, to maintain the channel, to look for flood control issues.
I'm going to ask the Public Services Director to provide some additional information. The answer to your question, Irene, is, or Councilmember O'Connell, I'm sorry, the answer to the question is yes, that the staff work effort does include maintaining at least in a limited awareness of the actions contemplated or being taken by the other agencies who have the direct responsibility. The comment in the spreadsheet was intended to advise the City Council, given your interest and the continuing concern about the need for potentially additional actions either being considered and taken by the city and/or in partnership with the Flood Control District and/or the airport. We feel that it's also necessary, and I would stress also necessary, to cover that issue in greater detail on a prospective basis, on a going forward basis, through the master plan update process. And I'll let the Public Services Director make any additional comments.
Honorable Mayor, Council members, good evening. I would just add a additional clarification that right now, through our existing stormwater very limited staff, is a ongoing focus and is a allocated resource to that specific issue, but it's our intent through the development and the outcome of the master plan to propose to you and to offer you the opportunity to further consider allocating even a difference or additional resources to that specific issue.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other discussion, questions? Michael?
No questions. Okay.
Rico?
To the chair. Real quick, well, pretty quick. I wanted just to thank the staff for bringing forward two resolutions, one for the tentative agreement for the water and wastewater. I think this is an important topic that obviously we've spent a lot of time on, not by choice. It was brought onto us, but at the same time it's important for us. And I think as we embark upon reviewing rate increases based on all that's gone on, we need to have a thorough understanding and appreciation for what's in the budget and what's going on within the departments when we have our ratepayers that come up before us and we go out and mail out the question asking them whether they're in concurrence with that. I think we need to be able to look them in the eye and be able to say positively that we've gone through this budget and that this is what's best for the community. So I appreciate staff doing that. I also, looking forward, am concerned that as of tonight, we have all the contracts agreed to for now with the negotiations. However, those will not last long and we will be back at the table again. And I think the city needs to continue to go forward, engage staff in continued meetings as they've had in the past of where we're at, where we're going, what the future, hopefully we can have some idea of what it holds. I mean, just if we talk about furloughs alone, it was brought up in the study session, we're talking about $200,000 to $250,000 not to have furloughs. Staff hasn't had raises. These things will come forward, and I think we need to be mindful. Redevelopment was brought up. What happens if? we've been busy here, but we need to also have long-term planning and think to the future. And again, all these things are going to come up once again, and we're going to be sitting down at the table, or it's going to face us. And I want to see us try to do the best we can with what we have and what we know, and keep all of those things in our forefront. And that's it for me.
All right. Ken, do you have anything?
Yeah, I'd just like to also echo what Councilman Medina said, and thank staff and thank the entire staff in the community in the city for what they've done in these past years and producing, which is probably the best budget we've seen in many years. Yes, you've outlined some of the downside of the budget, which is furlough and redevelopment and rising retirement costs, but it's a good budget, and we're definitely not flourishing, but then we're not just surviving either. This community probably can be described more as resilient. In the last 8 years of reductions and poor economy, we seem to get things done still. And the attestment is to people like the two that we honored tonight, 25 years of service. We have a great staff in this community, and they've put up with a lot in nearly this entire decade. And I'm proud to be sitting here and to say that things are going to get better. And that, yes, the concern about redevelopment, we've dodged many bullets over the years, and we just seem to still get things done and find a way, to improve this community. So, still a lot of work to do. We're not out of the woods yet, but I think we've got some promising things in the coming year. Thank you.
And before we take action, I just want to say to staff, you do one great job. It's very, very difficult, especially when you're dealing with a moving target like this. One of the recipients earlier said this is a special place. It's become even more special for a lot of people over this last year, but very difficult for us when there are factors out there that we have no control over, but we're still able to make it through with the cooperation of our employees and our citizens. So, good job. We're going to take these one at a time. The first one would be a motion approving the city manager's recommendation excluding for the general fund, special revenue funds, enterprise funds, excluding water and wastewater. Would someone like to make that motion?
So move.
Second.
Motion second to approve the city manager's recommended 2011-12 general fund, special revenue funds, and enterprise funds budgets, excluding at this time water and wastewater enterprise. On the question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Through the chair, Mr. Mayor, on these resolutions, should we be introducing them as resolutions?
Well, are they resolutions?
Yes.
Carol's just being nice.
Because the last one says resolutions, the others just say approve. So you tell me.
There are a total of 4 different resolutions,
Fine.
and we added a 5th one tonight relative to the water and wastewater.
Okay.
So,
Then would you like
that's
to
a
introduce the
companion to
resolution for adoption?
So move. I will introduce the resolution for adoption.
That's the first one,
The
correct?
first one, yes, and that excludes the water and wastewater enterprise.
Okay, Councilmember Medina.
Aye.
Councilmember Ibarra.
Aye.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Salazar.
Aye.
Mayor Ruane.
Aye. The second resolution would be a resolution approving tentative water and wastewater enterprise fund budgets for fiscal year 2011-12. And I believe that lasts about 30 days. Is that correct, City Manager? Right. Would someone like to introduce that resolution?
I'll introduce that resolution.
Councilmember Ibarra.
Aye.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Aye.
Councilmember Medina.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Salazar.
Aye.
Mayor Ruane.
Aye. The third is a resolution determining that the planning and administrative expenses funded in fiscal year 2011-12 by the Low and Moderate Income Housing Fund are necessary for the production, improvement, and/or preservation of affordable housing for low and moderate income households.
I'll introduce the resolution.
Board Member Ibarra.
Aye.
Board Member O'Connell.
Aye.
Board Member Medina.
Aye.
Vice Chair Salazar.
Aye.
Chair Ruane.
Aye. It looks like we still have to introduce the resolution approving the city manager's recommended 2011-12 redevelopment budget.
Yeah, he does.
So
This
move.
resolution.
Board Member Medina.
Aye.
Board Member Ibarra.
Aye.
Board Member O'Connell.
Aye.
Vice Chair Salazar.
Aye.
Mayor Ruane.
Aye. And the last one is...
Chair Ruane. Excuse me.
Aye also, right. Item D, adopt a resolution approving the city's appropriation limit of $30,605,771 for fiscal year 2011-12, which is the GAN limit.
I'll introduce the resolution for adoption.
Councilmember Medina.
Aye.
Councilmember Ibarra.
Aye.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Salazar.
Aye.
Mayor Ruane.
Aye.